I am in Times Square in New York City, in the very capital of the world. What an amazing place this is. There's so much to do in New York City, and as you probably know, there are a lot of videos on the internet explaining all the great things that you can do from the bottom of Manhattan to the top of Manhattan. But there's a certain area of Manhattan that really gets unnoticed, and it's right over there. There are many aircraft that are flying over New York City, and most of the people have no clue what's going on. This video serves a purpose to show you what's going on above the skies of New York City. So continue watching this video. You're really going to enjoy this one.
This is a crowded place full of people. While others around me were looking up, I'm pretty sure they were looking at the giant advertisements and tall buildings.
I'm not looking at the ads. I'm looking for 737s.
This is a great and diverse city for plane spotting, and there's so much to see, so
let's go around the island of Manhattan. So throughout today's journey, I'm going to take you to various spots around the island of Manhattan. We'll go to areas where it's very easy to see aircraft, as well as areas where it's a little bit more difficult, but there's always something to see up there. It's amazing. We're under some of the busiest airspace in the entire world, with flights from LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark all flying around each other.
Almost all the videos on this channel focus on the views from an airplane window, with the big focus on Manhattan, but for a change of pace, I'm changing the point of view, and today we're looking up at the action in the sky above New York. This video will focus specifically on the island of Manhattan, and we'll be visiting some random locations throughout the video. I've pinpointed the location of the 3 major airports around Manhattan. These airports are the source of much of the air traffic over Manhattan, but there's more to it than just these airports. We'll start off with our first viewing spot at a wide open space here at the East River near East 89th Street and East End Avenue.
I'm on the Upper East Side of Manhattan at the East River Promenade, and behind me is the East River. This area offers a fantastic view to do plane spotting while being on the island of Manhattan. LaGuardia Airport is in that direction right over there. Today they're actually landing on runway 4, so only arrivals to runway 4 will fly over Queens. But on different days during different weather events, you'll see different types of aircraft operations right over New York City. For example, if runway 22 is being used, aircraft can fly up the Hudson River, and in most recent days, aircraft have been flying up on the East River, so you can see aircraft flying in that direction at 4,000 feet. In addition to that, depending on the wind conditions, you can see aircraft coming into or out of LaGuardia Airport. If runway 31 is the departure runway at LaGuardia, you'll see aircraft take off over the bridges and make a right-hand turn towards the general direction of the Bronx, and then they'll be dispersed to the different headings. This is a great place to be if you want to see different aircraft in New York City.
Keep in mind that flights to LaGuardia will always land into the wind, so when the winds are from the north, you'll see planes landing in this direction. And when the wind is from the south, they'll sometimes fly over Manhattan, turn around past the Bronx, and land in the other direction. The East River is also a visual corridor. Small aircraft below the airlines follow the river by looking out the window.
Now, that is something that's definitely unexpected. A seaplane. That aircraft is going to be heading down the East River and will be landing a little bit further down.
Hard to believe it, but there's actually a seaplane base at 23rd Street, and the river is actually used as a runway down there. This is a seaplane that took off from 23rd Street and is heading northbound on the East River. For a quick overview of what we just saw, let's look at the map. When the wind from LaGuardia is coming from between 220 and 130 degrees, LaGuardia arrivals will fly northbound at 4,000 feet in the vicinity of Manhattan before continuing towards the Bronx, then swinging back around to land on runway 22. Here's the seaplane base, and in good weather months, you'll see planes landing or taking off in this area, but they'll also fly up and down the Hudson River. Oh, by the way, you're going to see a lot of helicopters in Manhattan. They're basically going to be all over the place, but this video will focus on fixed-wing aircraft. Now, so far we've been talking about LaGuardia flights, but this spot also gives sky gazers a great opportunity to see flights inbound to JFK.
Now, this is also a very good area to spot arrivals into Kennedy Airport. You may not necessarily think that we're in a good position to see that, but above me, at above 15,000 feet, is the Lendy arrival procedure. This is for aircraft that are coming in from the west, as well as aircraft coming from the north on the Kingston arrival procedure. Those aircraft fly directly over Manhattan, then directly over LaGuardia Airport, depending on the wind conditions. So if they're flying over LaGuardia Airport, you'll get a great view of them from here. But if they're flying to the south, depending on the wind conditions and the current runways in use at JFK Airport, they'll be flying over Manhattan at a very high altitude, a little bit further to the south. What a unique place this is to see aircraft of all different types.
And speaking of those arrivals to JFK, as I head toward the nearby apartment buildings, I saw this.
Do you see that airplane right over there? That's an Amazon Air 767 flying from Cincinnati to JFK at about 15,000 feet, flying right over Manhattan. Who knew?
At around 13,000 feet, this plane is flying over the northern part of Manhattan and over LaGuardia, since it'll be landing on runway 4 left at JFK. If it were to land on a different runway, such as runway 22 left, it would have been positioned more towards southern Manhattan. This is the general path arrivals to JFK will take when runway 4 left, 4 right, or runway 13 left, 31 right are in use. This is the general path arrivals to JFK will take when runway 31 left, 31 right, or runway 22 left, 22 right are in use. They'll always be pretty high up and above flights to and from LaGuardia. And over Manhattan, you'll only see arrivals to JFK. Departures from JFK won't fly over Manhattan.
Even if you're not at the water, there are still many opportunities to catch those views of airplanes flying over New York City. You've got airplanes at lower altitudes coming to and from LaGuardia, higher altitudes departing Newark Airport, and even higher altitudes arriving at JFK. On top of that, you may even see contrails of aircraft that are passing through the airspace from one point to another under the control of the high route air traffic control centers. This is an amazing place for aviation. So many people don't realize what's going on with all the excitement that's happening in Manhattan, but there's a whole new world right up there.
You'll sometimes have to look up in urban canyons, but I'll show you where planes are going up there to make every side of planes more understandable. For now, I want to head over to the Upper West Side for a different viewpoint. As I was driving along, I spotted a flight departing Newark Airport headed towards the Bronx en route to Europe. This is a common flight path over northern Manhattan.
Right now I'm on West End Avenue. Let's head over to Riverside Park to check out the aviation views from there.
For this part, we'll get closer to the Hudson River without actually going to its bank this time. One of the first things that I saw was a private flight flying visually up the Hudson River below airline traffic. That's such a common sight on the Hudson.
Behind me is the southern direction. Newark Airport is generally in that direction over there. Aircraft that are heading to the north or to destinations such as destinations in Europe will generally fly over Manhattan on their way to get to their destination. Manhattan is a great place to see aircraft going in that direction. And those airplanes that are heading to Europe are generally larger airplanes too. Now, you don't necessarily have to be on the west side of Manhattan to see those particular airplanes. If you're standing on the Hudson River, you'll be able to see them at lower altitudes, but no matter where you are in Manhattan, you should be able to see them as those aircraft head to the northeast to get to their final destinations. Now, lately, a lot of these airplanes have actually been going a little bit more further north than normal, so they may be flying over the Bronx, but on several occasions, especially when there's a lot of air traffic control will have those airplanes fly to the south, and they'll fly directly over Manhattan, sometimes directly to LaGuardia Airport first, and they're generally between 5,000 and 10,000 feet.
I didn't see any departures off of Newark at this point, but I'll show you some more later in this video. This shows you the general path Newark departures will take as they head to the northeast. Sometimes they'll fly over Manhattan, and at other times they'll fly further north. I had mentioned this is common for flights headed to Europe, but it also applies to flights headed to anywhere in the northeast out of Newark. The flights to Europe are just easier to see since they're generally bigger airplanes.
In addition to all the airliner flights that are flying at higher altitudes, there's also a lot of aircraft that are flying northbound and southbound on the Hudson River. Those aircraft are flying VFR, visual flight rules, and they're generally sightseeing flights. Those aircraft are below the airline traffic, so they don't interfere with aircraft. For example, a lot of times LaGuardia Airport arrivals will fly up the Hudson River at around 4,000 feet, while those aircraft are restricted to lower altitudes below so that they don't interfere with those airplanes. So if you want to see those airplanes, stay away from the trees, and of course, don't go underneath the New York City scaffolding. Now, just because you are in a canyon of buildings doesn't mean that there's not something you could spot up in the air. Whether it's LaGuardia departure or Kennedy arrival, you should be able to see it right here from the island of Manhattan.
I'm on Riverside Drive and 91st Street, and there are only a few places to look up, but we'll still see something. Remember earlier on we saw an airplane landing at LaGuardia over Queens? Well, when this runway 4 is in use, arrivals coming from the south will fly straight in and won't fly over Manhattan at all, but for arrivals from the north that need to land on runway 4, well, they'll approach New York City from the north, and they'll likely fly directly over the island of Manhattan before turning around Manhattan to land over Queens.
Here comes an Embraer 175 flying from Buffalo to LaGuardia, and this time it's going to fly southbound directly over Central Park, which is right over there.
This airplane is about 8 minutes from touching down at LaGuardia. Historically, most of these arrivals from the north have flown down the Hudson, but in recent months, the approach controllers have been having aircraft fly right over Manhattan. Sometimes, depending on the runway configuration of LaGuardia, aircraft from the north will be vectored directly over LaGuardia Airport first, then they'll make a left turn to the south directly over Manhattan before turning around the island and into Brooklyn and Queens to land. It all depends on the direction of the wind.
Now, if you watch my channel, you know that I am very fond of when LaGuardia is landing on runway 22 with right-hand traffic. That means that runway 13 is the departure runway. You see, aircraft will land on runway 22 when the wind is out of the south, and they'll either make a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn onto the final approach course. The right-hand turn generally occurs when runway 13 is the departure runway, and the left-hand turn occurs when runway 31 is the departure runway. That all has to do with the wind, of course, because aircraft have to land and take off into the wind. Well, generally when the aircraft are landing on runway 22 and runway 13 is the departure runway, aircraft are flying northbound over the Hudson. Now, recently, aircraft have been flying northbound over the island of Manhattan, so there's always an opportunity to see an aircraft flying up Manhattan from the Hudson River to the East River at 4,000 feet before they turn right.
Our next stop in Manhattan is Lincoln Center.
New York City is an amazing city, and there is so much to do in New York City. For example, I'm right here at Lincoln Center. What a great place for the performing arts. 99.99% of the people are here for the performing arts, but I'm here for a different reason. As I look up in the sky over there, I can see a departure out of Newark Airport.
I didn't get to see any departures from Newark while on Riverside Drive before, but I'm delighted that this flight is flying right over the Midtown Manhattan area. While concert goers might be enjoying some Verdi, I'm enjoying a different kind of green at 8,000 feet.
That, viewers, is an Aer Lingus A321neo from Newark to Dublin. Who knew? Now, an aircraft like that Aer Lingus flight is generally flying above LaGuardia arrivals. However, once that flight enters LaGuardia airspace over the Bronx and Queens, that aircraft is mixing with flights to LaGuardia, so the departure controller will have to issue different altitude restrictions to either that Aer Lingus flight or flights taking off from LaGuardia, depending on where they are. This is really complicated airspace here.
I'm in luck. At LaGuardia, the wind has shifted to coming from the south, so departures are taking off to the east on runway 13, and arrivals from the south on runway 22, the newly designated arrival runway, pass by LaGuardia to the west. That's right where we are.
And here it comes, ladies and gentlemen, the very first arrival to runway 22, an American Airlines A319 from St. Louis to LaGuardia.
Oh, the views the lucky passengers on the right side of the plane are seeing now. This is one of the world's great approaches. This is the view the passengers on the right side of the plane are getting. Can you find Lincoln Center down there?
That pilot informed the approach controller at the New York Approach Control Facility that he has the Hudson River in sight, and the controller said to follow the Hudson River northbound. Once that aircraft gets to the Bronx and lower Westchester County, he'll make a right-hand turn and descend to runway 22 via I-95. What amazing airspace this is. Just one thing to be careful of is that nowadays air traffic controllers are not necessarily telling aircraft to follow the Hudson River northbound. Now, if you're in Manhattan, that's actually really good for you because you'll be able to see aircraft from different locations, especially if you're in one of those canyons of New York City. If you're on the Hudson River, of course, it's gonna be a lot easier. Now, if you're an airline passenger, and this has happened to me many times, you can be a little bit disappointed if you fly directly over Manhattan because you can't see it below you.
Here's another airplane flying northbound up the Hudson. New York, New York. There's a ton going on down here, and the streets and buildings are full of people, yet no one on the ground seems to know that there are thousands of people just above the city in a highly coordinated ballet of aircraft avoidance. Controllers at the airports are in a radar facility room in Long Island and are constantly working to keep aircraft apart from each other and get planes to where they need to be. But so many people are completely unaware of this entire thriving ecosystem above the city. I hope this video makes you recognize how complex this city is on a whole new level. No matter where you are outside of Manhattan, if you can see up and the weather is good, well, you might be able to see some interesting things above you.
It's a great city, but there's so much to see up there too.
Now, I've shown you a lot so far, but let's head over to a different location, 23rd and 5th, for some plane spotting. I might just be the very first person who went to 23rd and 5th for plane spotting.
Right now, I'm on 23rd Street, which is one of the wider streets in Manhattan, which gives you an opportunity to see more aircraft in the airspace. Now, I'll talk right now about one of the different types of operations that generally happens over Manhattan. Those are departures off of LaGuardia. If departures are taking off towards the north of LaGuardia and their destination is to the south, quite often you'll see them fly southbound over Manhattan at various altitudes. Those aircraft actually do conflict with those Newark departures going over to the north and to Europe, but air traffic control makes sure that those aircraft are separated very well. In that airspace right over there, we're about to see a JetBlue A320 that just took off from LaGuardia heading to Orlando, and it's going south, so it's going to fly right over Manhattan.
And here it is. This plane used airspace over the Bronx for the initial climb before heading south. Now check out this high plane heading north.
Did you see that? That was a Southwest 737 from Baltimore to Albany, descending into Albany Airport from New York City.
Looking to the west, you can see an airplane flying along at 4,000 feet.
And there you have a Delta CRJ 900 up the Hudson River for runway 22.
While most people are looking at the Flatiron building here on 23rd Street, I've already identified 3 different types of flight operations. For the next part, let's head up to Broadway all the way up to 204th Street. That's near the top end of Manhattan. Runway 31 is now the departure runway at LaGuardia, so of course I have to go up there to check it out because most departures on this runway will fly over Upper Manhattan. Runway 31 points to 125th Street, but most departures generally turn slightly right after takeoff, pointing them toward Upper Manhattan before being dispersed toward their destinations. This plane is flying to Providence, Rhode Island, so after flying over the top of Manhattan, a right turn points it towards its destination. This plane is flying closer to 125th Street as its destination is to the south, Richmond, Virginia. And this plane is flying more of a straight route since its destination is more towards the west, St. Louis.
While this city has so much great stuff to do indoors, there are some really unique things that you can do outdoors that you normally would not expect. Oh boy, do I love this city, and I sure love what's going on above the city too. This is an amazing place. A lot of people don't realize this. All right, it's dinner time here in New York City, and I purposely chose a seat in an outdoor restaurant so I can see what's going on in the skies above me. There's an airplane over there.
I'm back on 23rd Street near the Flatiron building, and while people watching, I spotted a plane full of people. This time it's a Scandinavian A330 from Newark to Oslo making its way to the northeast. And remember those arrivals to JFK for the north? Well, here's an Alaska A321neo flying high over Manhattan from Seattle to JFK. Right behind that is a Delta 767 from LAX to JFK. I don't know if I can focus on my food with all these distractions. Look at this plane and its climb. It's flying from
Newark to Venice on a United 777. Don't forget to check out my video where I fly to Italy's Milan Malpensa airport on Delta Airlines.
Above that plane is a UPS Cargo A300 from Syracuse to JFK. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this very unique way to explore Manhattan by checking out the dance of planes above the skies. As I mentioned many times, most people don't know that this is actually happening above them, and it is fascinating.
Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Remember that if you're not a subscriber to my channel, I invite you to click on the subscribe button below, hit the bell button, hit the like button, and rest assured, I'll be back with many more videos like this. Cheers, everybody.